What do you think? Is it too soon to look for the good in this time of crisis, isolation, and fear? Is it too soon to find ways to be grateful and to give thanks? Is it too soon to turn to joy? Well, to be sure, your answers to these questions will depend on your personal reality. I have heard from too many of you about the real struggles that you're facing. I know others of you were seeking the lessons and the good to come of all this as soon as the harsh realities of coronavirus began setting in. Others still, like me, have in the past few days begun to feel the need to turn a corner, to turn away from reactive to proactive living, to turn our attention away from things we can't control to those things which we can control, to turn to God's goodness that transcends our present situation, to turn to joy. Let me ask you another question. What do you see on the screen right now? At the risk of psychoanalysis, which is not my area of expertise, there are two very different messages contained in those letters. You will either see opportunity is nowhere, or opportunity is now here. This is not some personality assessment and should not be used as a way to judge yourself or anyone else, but it is a provocative representation of two ways to see life, in good times and in bad. I'm guessing the Apostle Paul was more of an opportunity is now here kind of guy. He writes his letter to his church in Philippi from jail. He's been arrested, we can only assume, for his beliefs, for his teaching and preaching about Jesus. We might expect him to complain about his surroundings, or to explain exactly what landed him there, or to almost certainly ask for a collection for his bail money. But he does none of that. In fact, just the opposite. Here's how he starts his letter. My dear friends, I thank God every time I think of you, and I'm praying for you that you'll continue the good work we began together. If you're talking about me or worried about me, don't be. Get back to the purpose that brought us together in the first place, the gospel. After all, even though I'm in jail, I haven't stopped working toward our purpose. In fact, being in prison is actually helping us. I get to constantly share Christ with these Roman guards, and others are doing the same. Opportunity is now here. Brother David Stendhal Rost, a Benedictine monk, is more of an opportunity is now here kind of guy also. He's the founder and senior advisor to a network for grateful living and a survivor of many catastrophes of the last century. In the midst of the European conflict of World War II, he served with gratitude, hope, and with joy. He has a hard-earned right to give us a unique perspective on the opportunities that exist in suffering. He says joy is the happiness that doesn't depend on what happens. Joy is the happiness that doesn't depend on what happens. Is it too soon for that? I hope not. I think it's time for us to turn to joy, or at least that kind of joy, a happiness that doesn't depend on what happens. Obviously, joy is not the same thing as happiness because happiness is directly linked to what happens. And joy is also not gratitude. Now listen carefully, because gratitude is critical to a robust life of faith, but it's not the same as joy. Brother David makes the distinction that while we can't be grateful for everything, we can be grateful in every moment. We're not grateful for wars, violence, bigotry, injustice, or viral diseases like coronavirus, but we can be grateful in every moment if we will turn to joy. Like Paul, grateful in every moment spent in jail by turning to joy, a happiness that didn't depend on what happened. My favorite thing about Brother David is that he's not just a theory guy. He puts his opportunity is now here attitude to work with practical application. He suggests 3 simple steps: stop, look, and go. I want to apply these simple steps to our turning to joy, but don't confuse simple with easy. This is high-level spiritual work, turning to joy in times of crisis. Stop, look, go. First, stop. Last Sunday, Easter Sunday, we read from John's Gospel. But in Matthew's Gospel, there's a word we don't find in John: seismos. It's the Greek derivative of our word seismic, having to do with earthquakes, the very earth shaking beneath our feet. 3 times in Matthew, this word appears: Palm Sunday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. And each time it causes the people to stop. This is not mere interruption. This is full-on disruption. Needless to say, this executive order to stay at home has had a seismos effect on us, earth-shaking, disruptive, stopping life on the tracks. Before physical distancing, many of us were running in a big old hurry through life, overscheduled and under-rested, seeing for ourselves how urgency is the enemy of spirituality. More than a month ago now, we came to a physical and geographical screeching halt. But have we done the same thing at emotional and spiritual levels? The first move in turning to joy is to stop, to be still. Then we'll be able to look, to see things that otherwise would be missed in our rushing around. Stop, look. Opportunity is now here. Look to see what the unique opportunity is in this moment, most especially in moments of crisis. When we really look at our lives closely, an interesting thing happens. We realize that we have enough. When we stop and really look at our lives, our hearts become like a vessel that fills up with joy, even if we can't articulate it. And then, like the bowl of a fountain, it overflows into thankfulness, bubbling and splashing, spilling over loudly. But when we're not looking, not turned to joy, but rather tempted by the trappings of this world, the tricks of marketing and materialism, then rather than letting that joy overflow, we just make our own bowl bigger, keeping all that joy to ourselves and carrying a heavier and heavier load. To look is not only for our own good, but for the good of the world and for the healing of the world as our joy spills over. I've heard it said that where we look is where we go. The third and final move in Brother David's model for turning to joy is our outward expression, our going. If it's true that where we look is where we go, how do we know where to look so that we know where to go? Who's got a smartphone? A silly question. Who's heard of GPS? Okay, another silly question. Global positioning systems. GPS can locate us through our smartphone among the millions of people in the world using 3 coordinates: latitude, longitude, and altitude. Then it can direct us to anywhere we want to go by using the coordinates of our destination, where we want to go. The problem for us, spiritually speaking, is that we spend most of our time focused on only 2 coordinates: ourself and our circumstances. Without a third reference point, a third coordinate, we lose our way, our focus, like the people in Philippi. We're losing their way, their focus, and their joy. We need the third coordinate, namely Jesus, the risen and living Christ, to show us where to go. Not sure where to go in your life? Look to Jesus, and you'll find that the joy of the Lord is also your strength. I started today with a few questions. Let me close by asking the same ones again. Is it too soon to look for the good in this time of crisis? Is it too soon to find ways to be grateful and to give thanks? Is it too soon to turn to joy? What do you see on the screen? Now stop, look, go.